Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Free Advice Friday. Looking forward to be back with you guys. Looking forward to doing this again after a couple of weeks off. I spent last week in the land of black flies and mosquitoes, because that sounds like a fun and exciting vacation, doesn't it? Oh my goodness. It was a good time though. Enjoyed some time off last week. Last couple Fridays have been away. But back and ready to do this. Ready to hang out with you guys. Ready to answer your voiceover business and marketing questions. Ready to spend some time together on Free Advice Friday. So looking forward to doing this with you. I wanted to start off today talking about AI. Everybody's favorite subject to talk about, I know. We're so sick of hearing about AI. But Hunter Peterson shared an article in the VOpreneur group 2 days ago, maybe? I think it was 2 days ago. And it was about some changes that YouTube is making to the partner program. So the quick summary of this article, of the changes that are happening, and this is the article here. It was on TechCrunch that it was posted. YouTube is making updates to its partner program, which is actually going to start cracking down on AI content. So it's really about the repetitive, generic AI slop is the term that they use, content. It's become really easy using certain AI tools to just mass produce videos that have AI voiceover, AI generated visuals, whether they're just graphics, slideshows, AI generated video, etc. And they're creating these videos. A lot of them are very repetitive. A lot of them, they make slight, subtle changes, etc. And then they crank out these videos. There's content farms that crank out these videos. And this is a problem. It's not just on YouTube. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, these are not entertainment platforms. These are advertising platforms. And in order to get a piece of the advertising pie, you need views, watch hours, etc. And so if you can if you can mass produce content that you can create using a tool like AI, and it can drive up the number of views that you're getting, even though it may not be that the videos themselves are getting a lot of views, the individual videos may not be getting a lot of views, but if you're cranking out enough videos that you can rack up views, then you can monetize. And so in some senses, these platforms have created this problem for themselves, but they're now starting to recognize that this is problematic. So it's interesting, if you read the TechCrunch article, what it says is that they're making a slight update to the partner program, which is basically going to demonetize or potentially demonetize channels that are creating a lot of this AI-generated content. YouTube is looking for original and authentic content. And those are two specific words that they use in this article, original and authentic. And so, if your content is just AI voiceovers or AI visuals, or, there's no human in it whatsoever, then it's obviously not authentic. So the fact that YouTube is looking to demonetize these channels, I think is really encouraging. I think where it's interesting for voice actors and where we need to pay attention is a little bit more subtly under the lines of it. So in the TechCrunch article, and I read it 3 times, in the TechCrunch article, it doesn't specifically say why they're doing it, other than it's a violation of the policy and, original and authentic content, that comes up multiple times. So I did a little bit more diving into this. I've been reading a lot about it for the last 2 days, trying to dig into it a little bit more. And ultimately, what I think is really happening, and I found a little bit of evidence to support this, is first and foremost, viewers are getting tired of this content. I sent out an email newsletter a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, where I was saying that my 12-year-old was watching a video and she's like, Dad, it's the same stupid AI voice over and over again on every single video. And she's right, it is. There's like 3 AI voices that do all the videos. And she's just done with it. She can't be bothered anymore. She doesn't even want to be on the platforms. My kids don't do Facebook. Like it is dead to them. They barely do YouTube. They don't really do Instagram or TikTok or anything like that. And I don't think that they're alone in that because the content is all, it's junk. So going back to what we talked about earlier, which is if we know that these platforms are not really entertainment platforms, ultimately they're advertising platforms, then what is going to drive the bulk of their decision making? What is going to drive the bulk of their decision making is advertising revenue. And so if the advertisers are not seeing the conversion rates that they want, then they are not going to spend the same amount of money on advertising, which means advertising revenue is going to go down, which is a problem for YouTube. And so why is YouTube actually making these changes? I don't want to speak specifically for YouTube, but based on the research that I have been doing and what I have been learning, I think there's a couple of things. These channels that are pumping out all of this AI content, and specifically content with AI voiceover, is creating a lot of viewer fatigue. We just aren't interested in it. We're not engaging with it anymore. And not just you and me because we're voice actors and we're, opposed to it. In general, people are not engaging with it. There's a lot of viewer fatigue around it. That is problematic from an advertising standpoint. AI slop, and I say this in quotes, this is the official term, AI slop, which is a lot of this low quality, low effort AI content that is flooding some of these platforms, the fake voiceovers, the repetitive slideshows, the knockoff music, and all of that sort of stuff. They're generally considered to be spam content. And so that is actually harming the quality of the platforms themselves. If all you can find, and I've heard a number of people say this lately, that that's almost all that TikTok is now. And I don't use TikTok, so I can't speak to that from a personal standpoint, but I've heard a lot of people say that that's like almost all that TikTok is now, is this crap AI generated content. So that harms the platform. And if that's harming the platform, that is ultimately going to harm their advertising revenue. And there was a report that came out last month, so June of 2025, that talks about the fact that these platforms put themselves in this situation basically where they were financially incentivizing people to build this content, create this content. But now that people are sick of it, now that people don't want it, now that people are growing tired of it, that there's all this fatigue that is happening, it's actually diminishing advertiser trust in the platforms. So even though YouTube hasn't come out directly and said it yet, my thesis is that the reason why YouTube is making this change is because it is hurting ad revenue. If that is in fact why YouTube is making this change, I would not be surprised if we saw a similar change happen on some of the other platforms as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a similar change on Instagram ultimately. Excuse me. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a similar change ultimately happen on TikTok as well, if it's about advertising dollars. Now, why is this good for voice actors? I think there's a couple of reasons why this is potentially really good for voice actors. First and foremost, the fatigue. If people are getting sick of it, if people are not going to listen to it, if people are not going to engage with it, that is a pretty strong incentive on the production side of things for people to stop using it. So while AI was the shiny new object for a little while, and you had radio stations that were creating, 24/7 AI announcers and AI imaging, you've got national brands that are using AI generated commercials, like fully AI generated commercials. So AI voiceover, AI visuals, all that sort of stuff. Everybody's playing around with it. Everybody wants to try to look cool. Everybody wants to try to be the early adapter. But if we're not responding to it anymore, then that's going to mean that people are going to have no choice but to start thinking about using human voices again. So that's from a platform and a production perspective. From an advertising perspective, if advertisers are seeing that their ad conversion is cratering on AI generated content, in my mind, it would stand to reason that they are then going to have to think, okay, people don't like this stuff, so maybe we need to not be using AI voices on our content as well because people aren't engaging with it. And so I do think that this is potentially a net positive for voice actors. Do I think that this is, the beginning of the end of AI? No, not even remotely close. Do I think that it's going to help the voiceover industry in the sense that advertisers are going to recognize that there's value in the human voice? Yes, I think that we're going to recognize that. From a production standpoint, do I think that production companies are going to realize that there's value in human-generated content, human voices, human visuals, human actors, et cetera? Yes, I think that we're going to see that. I think it also opens up the door for a voice actor who wants to use content creation as part of their strategy. So I go back to the docu-shorts that I've been creating. One of the comments that I have seen multiple times as I've been sharing these docu-shorts, trying to do one of them a week, is how refreshing it is to hear a human voice, how refreshing it is to know that there's a human behind this. And I think that's a really positive sign, and I feel very optimistic about that. So from a content creation standpoint, if you were looking to create some sort of video content that highlights your ability as a voice actor, whether it's doing something like the docu-shorts or like I'm doing or something else, now may be an opportunity to get some views on a platform like YouTube as they demote AI-generated content, demonetize those channels. Because here's the other thing. If the channels are demonetized, the incentive is gone for the creators to keep doing it. The only reason why they're doing it is to make money. So if they're demonetized, why am I going to spend all my time creating all this content anymore? So now you've got less garbage content on the platform, which means that there's a better chance of higher quality, authentic and original, YouTube's words, authentic and original content to be viewed, to be found. So that has me really excited about the stuff that I'm doing on YouTube right now and feeling like there's going to be an opportunity for my content to grow, which can only, I think, mean positive things for my brand and hopefully positive things for my voiceover business. So cheers to YouTube for making that decision. And here's to the enterprising voice actors who are going to ultimately take advantage of it. So that's my thoughts on that article, because if you just read that article, you may have wondered, like, what does this ultimately mean? But if you dive a little bit deeper into it and get into some of the nuances of why some of those decisions might be made, you start to understand that, okay, maybe there's something going on here. So that's my thoughts on that. But this is Free Advice Friday, and I am here for you. I am here to answer your voiceover business and marketing questions. So as always, if you have a question that you would like to ask, a question that you would like to get answered, you can put that question into the comments. If you type a Q beside it, it makes it a little bit easier for me to find as I'm scrolling through the chat, but I'm certainly happy to try and answer as many questions as I possibly can here, hanging out until about 2 o'clock Eastern. So welcome, Robert. Good to see you here. Glad to have you on. Tony, Cameron, good to see you. Thanks for doing the podcast yesterday. Cameron says, I love that YouTube is demonetizing this slop. And I'm obviously pretty happy about that as well. I think it's a very smart decision. We'll see how that ultimately plays out. And what I'm more curious about now is, will the other platforms follow suit? Cameron says, what I heard about why they're doing it is that advertisers are pulling out because they're not getting views on AI videos, so they're complaining about YouTube. And that does make sense. I will say that I had a hard time finding actual articles that stated that fact. But reading between the lines of some things, that was definitely the impression that I walked away with. I'm constantly calling out stupid AI voices to my wife and kids when they're scrolling through videos. I don't even have to call them out anymore. My kids can recognize them. Even my 4-year-old, I think, is recognizing them at this point. So, it's always about the money for these platforms because they don't move on an ethical or moral basis. And I think there's probably at least a degree of truth to that. And so if you follow the money, you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together. But I do think that is really optimistic for us in the voiceover industry. All right, Java says, are all levels of voice actors receiving scam emails that appear to be quite layered in advance? I get at least 2 a week. And I get probably another dozen or 24 voice actors inquiring with me about whether or not it is a scam. They send me the emails that they're getting. And sometimes I've got those same emails and sometimes I haven't seen those ones, but that is a problem. It has definitely become a bigger problem. And I think we probably have AI to thank for that as well. You know, since we're giving credit where credit is due for so many different things, AI makes it easier to pull off some of these schemes. It makes it easier to send out emails at scale, to generate emails at scale, to be able to harvest databases that you can do this at scale. And so I think that's probably a product of that. But yeah, there does seem to be a really big growing number of these scams coming out. They seem to be coming a lot more frequently. Aside from building content specific to genres you want to get into, what direction are you strengthening your marketing in? I am leaning heavily into content right now. I am really pushing YouTube. I really want to create these shorts and see what I can make happen on these YouTube shorts. I'm also leaning quite heavily into LinkedIn. And I mean, I've always been a big fan of LinkedIn, and I feel like I've always tried to do a really good job of showing up consistently on LinkedIn and putting the effort in on that platform. But I am leaning a little bit more heavily into LinkedIn right now. And I am actually seeing results from that. I'm seeing that start to pay off. I'm getting more views. I shared a thing the other day in an email. Over the past 28 days, I had reached over 20,000 people on LinkedIn from the content that I was posting, and keeping in mind that I'm posting, you know, just a couple of times a week on that platform. So it's not like I'm showing up there every day creating content 7 days a week or whatever. But with what I have been doing, it's been working. And so I'm really leaning heavily into LinkedIn. If I just pull up my analytics here, just hang on a second. Let me just pull up my analytics and, I'll put this on the screen. So this is my my LinkedIn analytics from the past 28 days. So almost 21,000 impressions, which is about a 48, almost 49% increase. 6,779 members reached, which is a 68% increase. There's some of my top performing posts, 4,800 impressions on that one, 3,800 on that one, 3,600 on that one. So really leaning heavily into LinkedIn right now, just as a way of staying top of mind with people. I'm still doing email. I still think there's value in email. I still have follow-up sequences going out and all of that sort of stuff. I think that because a lot of the people that I'm sending emails to, I'm also connected with on LinkedIn. By doubling down on that strategy, I'm just hopefully staying in front of them even more often. So that's one of the other things that I'm definitely leaning heavily into right now. And by the way, guys, like this is the stuff that I'm teaching you in Voiceover Marketing Playbook. For those of you that are interested, Playbook is out right now. Today's the last day to get Playbook in July. If you are interested in that, you can get your copy at voiceovermarketingplaybook.com. The stuff that I do in my own business to market my own business, that is the stuff that I teach in this class. Like I am literally teaching you exactly what I'm doing. It's not like I do one thing and teach you guys something different. I'm teaching you the exact things that I'm doing. Something else that you might want to check out if you're not ready for Playbook is my latest social media ebook, 50 content ideas that add value. So the posts, so in this ebook, I literally create 50 different content ideas, 50 different themes that you could use for posts, and I share examples of what those posts might look like. That is literally exactly the guide that I am using in my own LinkedIn strategy right now, which saw, what did I say? Almost a 50% spike in the number of views that I've been getting in the last 30 days. I'm literally following exactly what I put into this ebook. So if you go to VOpreneur.com and click on the store button, that's the ebook there. $27 for that ebook. And I'll literally teach you the exact content strategy that I am following right now, which is, producing some results in my marketing. And I'm feeling really, really good about it. When you tell people it's refreshing to hear a human behind your docu-shorts, are they outside the industry? Because we tend to create our own echo chambers. I mean, I don't have a specific way to track that, short of trying to figure out who's behind the YouTube accounts. But I am getting comments on my YouTube videos. I don't think they're all from voice actors. In fact, I don't know that voice actors would say that. Specifically. I mean, maybe, I guess they would, but I can't tell you with 100% certainty that they are or they aren't. I just know that I'm seeing that comment more often than not popping up on different videos. And so again, it's making me feel a little bit optimistic that people are taking notice. This is actually Dr. Pepper in an A&W mug. My uncle used to work for A&W. He was an executive with A&W. So I have A&W swag everywhere. And so I like to take those big mugs and I frost the mugs and then put my Dr. Pepper inside of it. Actually, that's what's going on there. I am interested in getting into political ads, and I'm inadvertently getting pigeonholed into supporting one or the other forever. Possibly. Maybe not forever. Maybe at some point things will shift. I do think, though, right now that we are so divided down party lines. And this is not strictly an American thing, to be clear. I mean, Canada is just as bad. We're so divided down party lines right now. I'm not going to say it would be impossible to voice for both sides. Improbable, maybe. And the reason for that is, imagine that you were doing an ad for one side, and then you started doing an ad for the other side. And then because you did the ad for the other side the second time, so let's just say, okay, you did a Republican ad originally, but now you're doing a Democrat ad. And then what if somebody found out and they're like, oh, well, we must have made them switch sides, or you know what I mean? Like we're looking for ways to create even further division and create controversy. And I don't mean we like you and me. I just mean society as a whole. Nobody wants to go down that road. And it would be a really bad look for a Republican candidate who's trying to win a seat if all of a sudden the voice of their ad was voicing for a Democrat, and vice versa. It would be a really bad look if the voice for a Democrat campaign all of a sudden was voicing on a Republican campaign. Like it would be a really bad look if that got discovered, which, I mean, frig, there are literally people who dedicate their entire lives to scouring the internet looking for this crap. So I do think right now, when we are so divided, and I don't think it always used to be this way, but I do think right now it is probably more likely than not that you would have to pick a side. Robert says, you've mentioned ad buys on LinkedIn. I have an appointment scheduled with one of their advisors on Monday to discuss targeted ads. Any suggestions what I should ask them? What's converting right now? Ask them what's converting. Is there a specific theme or concept behind the ads? What I mean by that is, if I write the ad speaking specifically to a problem, does that work? Or so that would be like a negative. Or if I wrote the ad specifically addressing the solution, which would be a positive spin on the ad, does one work better than the other? Like, what do they see right now as far as trends? I would also be curious about, should I use video? Should I use a carousel of some form? Is a static image better? That would be a question that I might be interested in asking right now, just to see, because LinkedIn would probably have some more detailed analytics on this. I just think the biggest thing if you're going to run an ad campaign on LinkedIn, I think we think that we need to keep it generic and try to reach as many people as possible. And I think that is the wrong approach. So the successful ads that I have run on LinkedIn in the past have targeted one very specific audience with one very specific message and one very clear call to action. So I build an audience of instructional designers and target them with my e-learning demo and an ad that speaks specifically to my e-learning services and how I can help them. So I'm not creating a voiceover ad. I'm creating an e-learning voiceover ad targeted towards e-learning people. I'm not creating an explainer or a voiceover ad. I'm creating a targeted explainer video ad and targeting it specifically to explainer videos. And so I think that's the one approach. And that's something that I dive into a little bit in Playbook as well. But that would be the big thing for me, would one target audience with one clear value proposition and one clear call to action, but inquiring with LinkedIn about Is there anything specifically trending right now as far as the tone or the voice to put that ad in, and the visuals that go along with it? What would you say about trying to get into medical narration without having previous experience? I don't think that experience I don't think you have to be a doctor or a former nurse or an X-ray tech or something like that. I think you have to have the ability to deliver the content. I do not feel confident delivering complex medical e-learning. Not only do I not feel confident, I feel angry. I have gotten into the booth before, and I've had agents that have sent me stuff, and I've tried to audition for some of this stuff. And there's been literally times where I've tried for half an hour, and then I've just come out of the booth and said, I'm not doing this. I just don't have that. I don't have that skill set. And I have massive respect for people who do. And obviously not all medical content involves, pronouncing 16 syllable words and all of that sort of stuff. But I think that's the stuff that matters most. I think it's like with any other form of voiceover. Can you deliver the goods? I don't need you to have 25 explainer videos under your belt. I just need you to be able to deliver the goods on the explainer video that I want you to narrate. Right? So I think that is what matters more than anything. Do I think that you need to be doing some training to prepare yourself for medical narration before you just put out that flag? 100%. And that's where I would be reaching out to an Ann Ganguza or a Debbie Irwin and having that conversation so that you can, get yourself prepared for that genre. I think that's professionalism. I think that's showing respect for the genre as well. But do I think that you have to specifically have experience in that space? No, I don't think that you need to specifically have experience in that space. And I do have a podcast that I did, Mastering Medical Narration. Let me put this link in the chat. If you haven't had a chance to go back and listen to this one yet, I will put it in there. I had Debbie on the show not too long ago, and she literally did deliver a masterclass on medical narration. So that one would certainly be one worth checking out. All right, let's see. Pamela says, the higher up the political ads go, local, regional, national, you will need to choose a side. Local is not as critical for that as regional and national. And I think that's a pretty fair assessment of it. It's just, it's a byproduct of the culture and the times that we live in right now. And we are pretty divided. It seems like increasingly an important skill for voice actors is creating content, videos, captioned clips, split photos, etc. Do you see this becoming more and more important? I think that it is so hard to get attention today because there are so many things that are competing for our attention. Case in point, how many of you are going to sit and watch this live stream from start to finish, 60 minutes, without opening up another browser tab, without checking your phone, without responding to a couple of emails, without replying to a couple of comments on social media, right? Like, we are constantly bombarded with notifications and pings and all of these things, and it is so hard to compete for attention. So the more places that we can put ourselves, the higher the probability that we cut through the noise and get seen. So if I can land in somebody's inbox on a consistent basis because of my email marketing efforts, and I can back that up by showing up consistently on LinkedIn and popping into their feed every once in a while, and I can back that up by being present on YouTube if they happen to be somebody who surfs on YouTube, and I can back that up by showing up on Instagram, and so every once in a while they're going to see me pop up in their feed on Instagram. I am constantly showing up in front of them. I'm competing for their attention, and so then I'm ultimately top of mind. And that doesn't mean that I'm selling to them 24/7. It just means that they're seeing me and they're seeing my face and they're seeing my name. And so I think there's massive value in that. The other side of the content equation, I think, is there's massive value in demonstrating that you can do the thing. Our demos are still our number one sales tool. And I think that that is going to stay that way for a long time. But We also have the Gen Zers who are coming into the workplace, who will ultimately become decision makers. Some of them already are. And they have never known a life without social media. And so they work differently than an Xer. They work differently from a boomer. They work even differently from a millennial. And so for some of them who have lived their life on TikTok or on Instagram or on YouTube, we need to be present where they are. It's go where your buyers are, right? I read something, I read a book about Gen X. I've actually read several books, not on Gen X, Gen Z. I've read several books on Gen Z and just trying to understand their mindset and their mentality. One of the things that I learned was that a Gen Z is exponentially more likely to do their query when they want to learn something. They will do it on YouTube or they will do it on TikTok before they will ever do it in Google. So for me, as an Xer, for the longest time, I was doing my searches on Google. That's where I went and typed in my question. The Gen Zs do not do that. They go and type in their question on YouTube, or they go and they type in their question on TikTok. And so how can I be present in those places so that when they are spending time on that platform, I'm popping up in front of them? That happens through content. That happens through content creation. And so if I'm creating really great content that showcases my ability as a voice actor and getting in front of these people who are potentially decision makers on a regular basis, then I think logically that makes a pretty solid case for why you would want to be including content creation in the mix. Plus, we can't deny the fact that it gives us access, free access to global audiences. And obviously there's value in that as well. As a traveling VO, assuming the space has limited extraneous noise, would you recommend a vocal booth to go or packing an acoustic blanket and a pop filter? I got to tell you, I have a tri booth that I use, which is freaking amazing. I am so impressed with that tri booth and how good that thing sounds. Now, if I'm in a hotel room, when I stay up north, when we go to visit my wife's family, sometimes I stay in a hotel up there. And the one hotel that I stay at is literally right beside the fire station. If I am recording when the trucks go out, the best vocal booth in the world is not going to stop those sirens and air horns from bleeding through. But recording in that space when it's relatively quiet, oh my gosh, that thing is absolutely amazing. So I can't speak specifically to the vocal booth. I'm sure it's the same. I mean, I've seen them. I'm sure they're a similar concept or a similar style to the tri booth. But I will tell you that my tri booth has been absolutely amazing. And I've absolutely loved it. Can you travel lighter and build pillow forts and all of that sort of stuff? Yes, of course you can. Voice actors do it every time they go to a concert or a conference. Would it be nice to not have to fart around with all of that if you had the means to get a portable booth? Yeah, it's nice. I could set that tri booth up in 15 minutes and be ready to go. And it just makes my life so much easier. Unless it's content I'm specifically interested in, I rarely, if ever, will watch a YouTube video longer than 12 minutes, right? We can't. We just can't sit there anymore. I mean, I can't because I got to get up and go pee. But other than that, I mean, maybe if I didn't drink so much Dr. Pepper, I wouldn't have to pee so much. And now it's Gen AI that is getting a lot of the search questions versus Google. So content is critical to be found and seen online. Actually, one of the things that I have been researching the last 2 weeks, I have been deep diving into SEO for AI. So everybody talks about SEO. We want to be able to get page one on Google, etc. Now, even being page one on Google doesn't seem to be enough. There's been a very significant drop-off in the number of click-throughs to page one results because if you do a search on Google now, what appears in the top third of the screen? It's the results from Gemini. It's the AI-generated result. But Gemini is sourcing those results from websites. So I have been doing a ton of research and trying to understand how to make my website, how can I build my website in a way that is optimized for AI SEO, so that for people who are doing their search queries on ChatGPT now, or who are doing their, even still doing their search queries in Google, but how do I get to come up in the Gemini results? And so that's something that I've been doing a ton of research on. And I will say, I even noticed with my own shifting with my habits now that I have shifted. I do far more queries on ChatGPT than I do in Google. And one of the things that's nice about ChatGPT now is that it will give you sources. It will give you the links to the websites where it's drawing the information from. So I'm not just exclusively trusting the results of the AI, because obviously hallucination is still a concern for AI. So I can read what the responses that ChatGPT gives me, but I can get the source articles that it drew its responses from. So I can click through and read some stuff for myself as well. For Source Connect, I know being hardwired is ideal, but would a Wi-Fi extender be almost the same? I think the biggest thing why they want you to be hardwired is because there's so much less likelihood for disruption. And you get, what is it called? You get a better ping rate or whatever it is. I'm not an IT guy, but you just have a stronger, sturdier connection, basically. Can you do it over Wi-Fi? If you have a good enough Wi-Fi connection, I think you can do it and get away with it. I think the biggest thing is just having a strong enough Wi-Fi that can handle it. I use Perplexity more than Google. And I mean, Perplexity, that's basically what it is, right? It's basically AI search. It is becoming very popular as well. I'm not even joking, guys. This is going to sound really terrible, but I have actually been looking at adding a dedicated monitor to my work setup to keep ChatGPT open on that monitor up there all the time so that I don't have to go back and forth between windows and stuff like that. I've been using it a lot lately. It's been helping me a lot. How much of the VO industry is based on relationships being the right voice for the project? I think it's a really strong balance of both. I think when you are the right voice, if I'm a casting director, if I'm a producer, whatever, I'm a client, I'm a voice buyer. Most of the time, they have a voice inside of their head. They can hear what they want their project to sound like. If you can deliver that, then they're probably going to want to work with you. If you are the voice that they are hearing inside of their head. The relationship is what is going to get you the next job and the job after that. The relationship is what is going to get you the referral. The relationship is what is going to get you the testimonial. And so I think those two things go hand in hand. I think that we have to always be working at both. You have to be able to deliver the goods, which doesn't specifically mean having a great voice. It just means being able to deliver the right reads and what is booking today and what is trending today. But then also building those relationships and expanding that network out so that those people want to come back again and again and again and again. Wow, time flies. Look at that. We're 40 minutes into this thing already. If you have a question that you would like to ask for Free Advice Friday, please don't be shy. Type your question into the comments. I'm certainly happy to answer as many questions as I can. I can stick around until 2 o'clock Eastern time. Also, if you are enjoying the live stream, certainly I would appreciate it if you would hit that thumbs up button. Give me a like. If you've asked a question and I've answered it, give me a like. I would certainly be grateful for that as well. But looking forward to answering some more of your questions. If I missed your question, just know that I was not trying to do that intentionally, but sometimes there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat. Occasionally I overlook one. So if there was a question that you wanted to ask or you did ask and I missed it, feel free to type it again and I will certainly keep an eye out for it. New episode of the podcast is out right now. Is branding worth it? We're doing the summer series. So these are short, quick hit episodes where I bring a voice actor onto the show, kind of like we're doing Free Advice Friday right now, and you're asking your questions and I'm giving answers, except I'm inviting voice actors to come onto the podcast and they get to ask me their question and I give them an answer to their question live on the podcast. And the idea, of course, being that if one person is thinking it, there's probably at least a few other voice actors out there who have that same question. So there's been some really good stuff on the summer series. That is available right here on the YouTube channel. Watch all the past episodes. wherever you subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Podbean, all the places. You can enjoy it, and it's also on the website at VOpreneur.com. If you have to use Wi-Fi, make sure it's the strongest possible signal. Get as close to the Wi-Fi source as possible. If you can get extenders that go through the wall via electrical circuit, try that. I actually have a mesh network in my house, and I've got 4 different wireless access points, which is probably overkill. My house is not huge by any stretch of the imagination, but I wanted to make sure that I would always have good connection everywhere. And so I actually have a wireless hotspot. It's right over there. So that extends the Wi-Fi into my office quite nicely. But my studio is hardwired in as well. So my studio computer is hardwired into the Wi-Fi. I am that guy, that nerd guy who figured out all this stuff and ran Cat 6. And so all of the whole idea of a mesh network is that you're supposed to be able to spread internet throughout your house, and you're supposed to do it wirelessly. I'm the guy that actually ran the Cat 6 cable throughout the entire house so that all 4 of the access points are connected to each other via Cat 6 cable, and then they just extend the actual Wi-Fi signal. Like, I'm that guy, but I just really want to have good internet. What is the best way to market for getting jobs in medical narration? So I think you got to have the demo first and foremost. I think it's absolutely to your advantage to have a medical narration demo. One of the things that I learned from the podcast with Debbie Irwin, and I encourage you to go and listen to that podcast. I put the link in the chat earlier. It's right here on the YouTube channel as well. The medical genre is vast. I had no clue how vast the medical genre was. There are so many different aspects to it. And so there are a lot of different places where you can go, a lot of different places to potentially niche down as well. Pharmaceutical obviously is one. Medical equipment is one. Hospital systems and healthcare is one. Like, there's healthcare in general. Wellness is an area. There's, on the corporate side and the sales side and the HR side and the consumer facing side, there's so many different aspects to it. And so part of it is just figuring out what you want to do and then figuring out how to narrow down. And that's where I think, going back and listening to that episode with Debbie Irwin, where she breaks down some of that stuff, can be really, really high value. If you have a specific skill set, for example, if you speak another language like me, I get referrals from fellow talent all the time. So that's another resource. Yes, that is absolutely. I keep a very extensive database of voice actors who are different age ranges, different voice types, different languages, different ethnicities, different accents, all of that sort of stuff. So that when a client comes looking, if they're looking for something specific, I have the ability to then say, hey, I can't do that, but I know someone who can. Let's see. What else is going on? Janet says, hey, Mark, hope you're doing great today. Documentary recommendations for women. I would love to do a documentary demo. Are there any resources that you recommend? Well, I think Tom Pinto is one of, if not the best coach in the documentary space. Hands down. That is who I did my coaching with in preparation for my documentary demo. I absolutely loved working with Tom. He was one of the best coaches that I've ever worked with. He knows the genre inside out and backwards. He has an uncanny ability to break it down and explain it in a way that just makes it really easy to understand, which I loved. He's got a great ear for it. He's been booking in it forever, still continues to book in it, which matters as well. And so I did my coaching with Tom Pinto, and he was the director for my demo. And then actually Uncle Roy, who is on the live stream right now, was the producer of my demo. And then between the three of us, with me voicing, Uncle Roy producing, and Tom directing, that demo ultimately got nominated for a Voice Arts Award as well, which I was very proud of. So that would be, Tom would be somebody that I think I would absolutely consider reaching out to if documentary is a genre that you are interested in exploring and doing some coaching in, and ultimately producing a demo in. Any fun summer plans? Yeah, we are hoping to go to Tennessee in August, end of August. back to Pigeon Forge. This will be my third time going to the Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area of Tennessee, which I just love. We went a couple of years ago, took the whole family. My girls had so much fun. And so when I asked them a couple months ago, I said, where do you guys want to go for summer vacation? And without hesitation, Pigeon Forge, we want to go back to Tennessee. So I'm okay with that because we love it. Super fun place to hang out. So many amazing things to do. Beautiful, beautiful scenery getting up into the Smoky Mountains. So that is exciting summer plans. We spent a week at my visiting my wife's family. My mother-in-law runs a campground in the middle of nowhere in northern Ontario, and she's got a trailer out there, and they've got some trailer park and cabins and stuff like that. So we had rented a cabin, so we were up there. That's where we were last week, which is why I wasn't doing Free Advice Friday. And we'll be up there again in August as well. Got to spend some time with the black flies and the mosquitoes. I guess I got to spend some time with my mother-in-law too, but it feels like mostly I'm just there for the black flies and the mosquitoes because the black flies and the mosquitoes spend more time with me than my mother-in-law does. Oh man. Love those Smoky Mountains. Yeah, we got this beautiful cabin way up in the mountains, incredible views. Very excited about it. And then, like I said, so many fun things to do in that area too. All right, guys. I got, 15 minutes left. Happy to continue to answer some questions for you. If you do have a question that you would like to ask and get answered on Free Advice Friday, type that question into the comments, put a Q beside it, and I will certainly be keeping an eye out for your questions, trying to answer as many as I can here in the next 10 or 15 minutes. What else? I will reach out to Tom. You will not regret reaching out to Tom. Uncle Roy says, Tom Pinto, JMC, and me. You could reach out to him as well. Look, he's right here on the live stream. Get your killer demo produced by Uncle Roy. You can never go wrong with a killer demo produced by Uncle Roy. I got a couple of them, and they've been nominated for awards. I have my studio hardwired as well. It's faster and more stable. Wi-Fi nowadays is stable, but when you're talking about Dropbox, for example, speed is paramount. Plus, you fight against smart TVs. That's the other thing, right? How many devices in your home are now connected to your Wi-Fi? Every freaking device in this house is connected to Wi-Fi. My thermostat, my light bulbs, my light switches, I've got smart plugs, smart TVs, Apple TV boxes, computers, laptops, watches, phones, iPads, the garage door opener, like literally every stinking thing is connected to Wi-Fi and competing for bandwidth. And so when you can hardwire in, that definitely makes a difference. Or at the very least, if you're going to do Wi-Fi, a lot of Wi-Fi networks allow you to configure priority devices. And so that's something else that you might want to look at too, is configuring your studio computer as a priority device. So if you are connecting exclusively via Wi-Fi, it gets a little bit more of the bandwidth and gets priority on the bandwidth. Sorry if this has been asked. When direct marketing, what's the best way to find the right person to send that cold email to within the company or studio? I think a lot of that depends entirely on who you're reaching out to. So you could be, depending on the company, depending on the genre, it could be a creative director, it could be a producer, an executive producer, it could be an instructional designer, it could be post-production supervisor, post-production coordinator, it could be a filmmaker, it could be, what else? Those are some of the main ones. There's so many different things. So many different places now, depending on the genres that you're reaching out to. I actually do have a resource. If you go to VOpreneur.com, click onto the store button, and I do have a resource there called 40 Job Titles to Connect with for VoiceOver. And what I did was I went through my entire CRM, so thousands of people in my CRM, and I went through my LinkedIn, thousands of people in my LinkedIn, and I picked out the most common job titles that I am marketing to and working with and put them into a guide. And so that guide is right here, and it is $27. So, pretty affordable. But that can give you a whole bunch of different job titles that you could potentially be reaching out to. Again, it's going to vary based on genre, and that makes a difference. If you're reaching out for commercial, for example, you're not going to be connecting with instructional designers. But if you're reaching out to e-learning, you are. But that guide might be very helpful for you. If you are struggling to get your first booking, when do you know when to hang it up? Oh, this is a good question. This is a tough question. This is an incredibly, incredibly competitive industry. And with AI coming in, and AI, I think, taking a lot of the lower end jobs, which for some voice actors might have been the starting point, right? That was where you kind of cut your teeth. That has only made the competition even more intense for the good stuff. And the cream will really rise to the top. So before I ask myself, am I hanging it up? I would ask myself, have I done everything that I can possibly do to prepare myself? Have I worked with top reputable coaches in the genres that I am interested in working with? Have I produced the best possible demos that I can get in the genres that I want to pursue? Do I have a website that stands up against any professional voice actor website? Is my studio sound on point? Have I made the right investments? Has an engineer like an Uncle Roy signed off and told me that my sound was right? All of those things, they've always mattered, but I think they matter even more now because of how high the level of competition is. So I would be looking at all of those things and seeing, is there anything else I can do in any of those areas before I decided whether or not I was going to hang it up. I literally just read your LinkedIn post from yesterday. Nobody cares if you're new. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. How do I know if I can deliver in a session if I've never done a session? Your coach. Your coaches are going to tell you. If you're working with good, reputable coaches, a good, reputable coach is not going to produce a demo for you until you are absolutely ready, because their reputation is at stake. Everybody knows J. Michael Collins. He's got the brand, right? Luxury, money, the best, the finer things. Like, he's built that brand by being the best. Do you honestly think that J. Michael, with a warehouse full of trophies for all of the award-winning demos that he's produced, do you honestly think that he is going to produce a demo for somebody who can't deliver in a session? Not a chance, because that risks his brand. Quality matters. That risks his reputation. If there are a bunch of bad JMC demos out there, all of a sudden, quality doesn't apparently matter anymore. So he's never going to do that. Ann Ganguza is never going to produce a demo for somebody who's not ready. Uncle Roy is never going to produce a demo for somebody who's not ready. So if you've worked with a reputable coach and you've produced a demo with a reputable producer, the fact that you have that demo is a statement that you are ready to book. Is your first session going to be perfect and flawless? Not likely. Have I got in the booth 20 years into this and thrown down a couple of stinkers? Yep. We all have off days. But I just think if you've done things in the right order, then you are ready to go. Lobsters. Yes. JMC's brand is also lobsters, which are ultimately some of the finer things. Who doesn't love good lobster every once in a while? All right, let's see. Am I missing anything? Thank you guys for coming, as always. How beneficial is it to keep going to VO Atlanta if you've already been twice? You will never, ever run out of things to learn in this industry. Ever. And the reason why you will never run out of things to learn in this industry is because the only thing that stays the same in this industry is everything changes, which is, by the way, a universal principle of life. The only thing that stays the same is everything changes. I have been going to VO Atlanta every year since 2015 or 2016, I think, minus a couple of years during the pandemic when I wasn't allowed to leave my country. I have learned something at VO Atlanta every single time that I've gone. And most of the time, actually every time I've gone as a presenter, but I still like to try to sit in on sessions when I can. And I've learned something every time I've been there. And so there's always something new to learn. There's always a new trend. There's always a new read that's booking. There's always new information that's coming down. There's always a new strategy for email marketing. There's always a new strategy for social media. What worked 2 years ago doesn't work today. And so I absolutely think that there's value in going. I think that if you're going to continue to go, that you always go with a specific purpose in mind. I think it's always good to have an objective. I want to go this time to focus on this. I'm going to go to VO Atlanta this time, and all I want to focus on is my commercial. I'm going to go to VO Atlanta this time. All I want to focus on is my e-learning. That doesn't mean you can't do other things or attend other sessions, but it just means you go with a very clear objective and you're always looking to improve. The other thing I would say is there are a lot of other conferences that are worth checking out as well. I'm going to be speaking at MAVO, which is happening in the DC area in November. It's a totally different conference from VO Atlanta, totally different vibe from VO Atlanta. WovoCon has the Unconference, which is happening in New Orleans. A totally different vibe from Atlanta and a totally different vibe from MAVO. So, I mean, there's a lot of other conferences that you can look at and attend as well. But I do think that there is always something new to learn. And there's always value to draw from those events, I think. Regarding VO Atlanta, I just signed up for the 2026 early bird deal today. Yeah, I got that email from JMC. I saw that email. It's got one yesterday, got another one today. What does it say? Do I still have it somewhere? Big savings anyway if you sign up for the early bird special on VO Atlanta. So why not take advantage of that? But like I said, don't be afraid to check out some of the other events that are going on as well. One Voice is happening in Dallas next month. I think WovoCon is what? Is that September? September or October maybe? MAVO happening in November. So like I said, there's lots of different events that you can check out, lots of different opportunities to learn. Guys, I want to remind you, Voiceover Marketing Playbook is available today, the last day to pick up your copy of Voiceover Marketing Playbook. Oh, that's the wrong website. Look at that. This is what happens when you're doing live on YouTube. If you go to voiceovermarketingplaybook.com, there we are, voiceovermarketingplaybook.com to check that out. This is a step-by-step, easy-to-follow marketing course that's going to teach you how to find your own leads, build your own client base, and become the consistently working voice actor that you want to be. It's like 8 hours of content in the course. I'm going to teach you about lead generation. I'm going to teach you about email marketing. I'm going to teach you about social media, different strategies for different social media platforms. Everything that I teach in Voiceover Marketing Playbook are the exact things that I am doing every single day in my own business. So the deadline to register for Playbook is tonight, 11:59 p.m. Eastern. VoiceOverMarketingPlaybook.com is the website if you want to check it out. Wovo Unconference is October 16th to 19th. I got to tell you, I am thinking about that one because New Orleans and seafood and beignets. I will travel for food. I'm that guy. When I go to a new place, one of the very first things that I look for is the best place to get barbecue and or the best place to get seafood. I can't do spicy. I am a baby. I fully admit it. Anything beyond ketchup, I start to sweat. But I love making gumbo. I love crawfish. I love making jambalaya. I love making crawfish étouffée. Like, I cook all of these things. I love all of these foods, but I have never had authentic New Orleans cuisine. And so the idea of going to New Orleans and being able to eat all of those foods, I'm telling you, it's very tempting. Very tempting. I have been thinking about it. I don't know if my wife will let me travel again, though. I was already in Seattle earlier this year. I was in Atlanta earlier this year. Then I was in Seattle. Then I was in Vancouver. I'm going to Mavo. Like, there's only, you know, we're going to Tennessee. Like, I can only do so much traveling. But I'm telling you, it's tempting. It's tempting. If I could come and get some. Oh, I want a shrimp po' boy. Gosh darn it. Why you guys got to bring it up? That's all I can think about now. All right, guys. It's so much fun to hang out with you as always on Free Advice Friday. I love it that you come, that you spend some time, that you ask some questions. Evocation in September. Don't want to miss that one. It was an absolute honor. And when I say absolute honor, I mean, I was so taken back by being invited to be the keynote speaker at Evocation last year that it almost made me emotional. Like, when I actually did my keynote, I almost got emotional, which is something that I don't do because I'm a hardened, retired, emotionless old firefighter. But it was truly an honor to do that. So yes, Evocation is another amazing conference if you haven't checked that one out. And they do the Vocation Cancun thing or whatever. Like, they travel to some tropical place. And so, yeah, so many different types of conferences to check out in this industry. Anyway, I got to go. I got to get ready for another session. But thank you guys for joining me on Free Advice Friday. As always, I absolutely appreciate it. Let me look at my calendar quickly. What am I doing next week? I think there will be Free Advice Friday next week. So looking forward to seeing you back here on the YouTube channel, 1 o'clock Eastern. Bring your voiceover business and marketing questions and a Dr. Pepper, and we'll hang out for an hour on YouTube. All right. Whatever you decide to do this weekend, guys, as always, have fun, stay safe, and go find some leads.